So my name is William Temple Thomas III. I was appointed by Governor Hogan to be the commissioner representing Baltimore City to the Maryland Citizens Redistricting Commission back in April. And we were tasked with looking at the congressional, legislative, and House delegate voting districts and determining what the new map should look like. Essentially, redistricting is taking into account the population differences between over the last decade. Who moved into what areas, where they moved from, voting age population, all that type of stuff. So that's basically and making sure people have adequate representation for the area that they live in and being able to correctly define what a voting district looks like. Gerrymandering is a term that was developed from a senator from way back when up in Massachusetts. He drew his district maps to be able to pick his voters. To pick people that were going to elect him. But the maps that he drew had no real rhyme or reason, and they looked like a salamander on the actual map. His last name was Jerry. So they had a little fun with it and they said it's gerrymander instead of a salamander, so it's gerrymander. Basically, it's people who have been elected who are taking the opportunity to choose and pick who gets an opportunity to elect them, or them choosing people that are going to keep them into office. Up until recently, a majority of the efforts involving redistricting and gerrymandering, all that stuff, have been in the hands of elected officials. This year, there have been a number of independent citizens commissions that have been formed to take the redistricting and map drawing power from the elected officials and put it into the hands of the people who actually are voting to put people in office. Maryland was one of those states. California, Ohio, and a few others, Utah and a few others, have all formed independent citizens commissions of people who don't have any political background or political title. We're just everyday working citizens who are trying to make sure we draw fair and equitable maps. It's really a full-time job, trying to redraw voting maps and districts, Senate maps, and it's a lot of work that's involved analyzing the census data. The way we did it, we had a series of public forums that were designed to be able to receive input from the public. We wanted a lot of public feedback so that the people can tell us who they want to be included in their, communities of interest, what neighborhoods they felt like they were closely tied to and had similar interests that they had. So it was trying to negotiate and take into account a lot of the public feedback that we got, because nobody can say that they're an expert in all areas and all communities in Maryland. So that's why getting the public feedback was very important to us, because people who live in those areas, they know the problems and the intricacies of their neighborhood best. So, and I'm a firm believer as a community organizer, the people that are closer to the problem are the ones who have the ability to solve the problem. So we wanted input from the public to let us know how we can best help them solve the problems that they face and draw maps that would allow them the best representation at the congressional level, legislative level, and the House delegate level to help them solve the problems that they face in their community. Talking to, a group of people who had no idea what I was trying to advocate for. And instead of telling them what to say, I wanted to teach them and educate them from my limited experiences. I didn't know what redistricting was until I was really appointed or applied to this commission. Even then, there was still a lot of information I had to learn in order to accurately advocate for the people who provided written testimony, verbal testimony, for what they wanted their communities to look like. I used to say this all the time when we were in our working sessions. I always have something to say, whether I should say it or not is a different question. It's just, for me, it was reading the written testimony and hearing the public testimony from people who live in different areas of the state or different backgrounds or opinions. Just hearing what they think of people from certain areas and the potential that they could be in the same voting district or grouped in the same community as other people. A lot of strong opinions come with that. And my thing is, these invisible lines of voting districts make people feel like they're better than other people. When in actuality, the same issues are pretty much prevalent everywhere. It's just some people think that because they live in a certain zip code, that their issues are more important or not as severe as people in other zip codes are. And it was just potential for certain people to be grouped with others. It was just a lot of negative and nasty opinions being put out there. And I just didn't think it was fair to the people who live in underserved communities who had no control over where they were born and where they were from, the type of environment that they were born into, and for somebody to think less of them over something that they couldn't control was drastically put on display during this process. Being on the Citizens Commission gave me an opportunity to use my problem-solving skill set to solve a problem at a 5,000 foot level. As a grassroots organizer, we're used to dealing with small groups of people or different communities and dealing with youth and trying to address problems that we see fit or problems that we actually have the resources to solve. It's sort of kind of just like chipping away at the issues a little bit by a little bit. But this gave me an opportunity to address things at a much larger level, and I wanted to try to use my skill sets to solve problems at that level as well. So it was sort of a two-pronged approach, solving problems at this level and this level at the same time. So I was able to have conversations with people and to reach out to other people that I never had an opportunity to speak to, and hear their perspectives and understand issues from as they know it, and it gives me something else to think on. And like I said, with my takeaway with this commission is, I have something else to advocate for and educate people with for the next 10 years and possibly the next 20 years. So it was just another opportunity really for me to use my skill set as a problem solver to solve the problems of the areas that I live in, the different demographics that I represent, and try to use my gifts and talents to make life better for other people.